Good morning, Northside Community Church. Hey, it's Father's Day. Woo! Yes, it's Father's Day. Happy Father's Day to all you dads out there. Well, we've had some pretty warm weather, and that's a sign that VBS is coming. And so be prepared as this fellowship center, it starts to transform into our vacation Bible school. So we're looking forward to that this week. Well, dads, we really want to say to you today, thank you. Thank you for loving the Lord and loving your family. Unfortunately, there's a kind of pattern that preachers have, and this is including myself. We tend to magnify moms or on Mother's Day, and we just kind of sort of minimize dads on Father's Day. Now, you know what I mean. You know what I'm talking about? Now, think about how much we are willing to spend on Mother's Day, and then what you usually spend on Father's Day. Just think about that for a moment. You see, for the most part, it's pretty obvious that we're more willing to spend quite a bit more on moms than dads. Now, don't get me wrong. This doesn't mean that we don't love our fathers. It's just, it is what it is, right? A few weeks ago, I was scanning through my phone on my news app, and there was a story posted about this very phenomenon. It was an article, and the article said that fathers have really gotten a bad rap. Now, this is how it read. Sometimes dads are seen as sleeping a lot and they snore a lot. And when they're awake, they like to fish and golf, but they're comically bad at both. Now, this is where the word couch potato is derived from. Always watching TV and always hogging the remote. Now, for the most part, that's how fathers are portrayed on most Father's Day cards. Now, there's a huge contrast between Father's Day and Mother's Day. And I'm not saying that moms don't need to be praised, because they do. They absolutely do. They deserve to be praised. But fathers also need to be praised along with them. I say that because when you look at the media, even Hollywood, dads, they're just portrayed as this kind of goofy, silly, buffoonish kind of guy. Now, I don't know how all the men feel about this, and I'm not going to speak for all the men, but for me, I'm tired of the put-down cards that I get to see on Father's Day. See, did you know that Homer Simpson was once actually nominated for Father of the Year? Now, I don't know about the rest of you men, but I would like some affirmation for a change. And trust me, I'm not allowing my emotions to overwhelm me in this area, and I'm not trying to be militant for dads. I'm just trying to say that it's time that dads receive some affirmation. Now, I was talking to a few of my friends about this very subject. And we came to a conclusion that we would like to celebrate the commitment to fathering. How about that? Celebrating the commitment to fathering. You see, a commitment to a number of young men that we see that are fathers who have really and honestly stepped it up as dads. See, I know of many devoted dads here at Northside Church who play and pray with their kids, whether they are toddlers, teenagers, or adult children. We want to celebrate with those dads who are making disciples and want to give you some affirmation for a change. Now, in preparing for this sermon, I came across the National Center for Fathering, their website. And this was really interesting. They had recently declared that awakening for fatherhood is happening, citing evidence that men are rediscovering what it means to be a father, what it really means. According to the extensive survey that they had done, dads today are more involved than ever before. Now, here are two rather surprising facts. In the past 20 years, the number of dads present at their children's birth has risen 27% to more than 90% today. That's pretty amazing. Now, there was also some statistics about fathers during the pandemic. You see, in 2020, more than 75% of men were surveyed, they said that they would trade a rapid career advancement for more time with their family. Now just think about that. Because we all went through this pandemic together. And as we sat at home and watched the news and the television, we heard things like the divorce rate has gone up, and violence within the home has really escalated, domestic violence, and depression was growing. Some of the things that we didn't hear was that the fathers who had to spend time with their family were reintroduced to really what it means to be a father, and they valued it. And through this survey, statistically, we could see that there's quite an uptick now in dads who are really focusing on their families. And that was a real positive thing, if you could say there was a positive thing about the pandemic. Now, Father's Day, for some of us, it can be a tough day. It can be. See, I recognize that for some of us, this day is difficult because our dads are no longer with us. Or they may have possibly dropped the ball somehow. See, the U.S. Census Bureau has stated that we have become a fatherless nation. 33% of the 72 million children in America will go to bed tonight without their biological fathers at home. Now, I know that stings a little bit, but God is a good father. And you may find yourself in need of some fatherly attention. And I hope that you allow your Heavenly Father to meet that which is lacking in your life. In Psalm 68, verse 5, it reads, "A father to the fatherless, a defender of widows. God is in his holy dwelling." And that would be our hearts. He is to be in our hearts, his holy dwelling place. See, my aim for this morning is to encourage dads to be about the task of making disciples. You see, today we live in a world where it's much easier to become a father than to be one. I want to honor fathers by putting 10 fatherly principles together from 3 different passages that are specifically addressed to dads. So we be talking to you, Dad, this morning. And we'll begin with 1 Thessalonians chapter 2. And then we will head over to Ephesians chapter 6. And then we're going to end up in Malachi chapter 4. Now, our first text for the morning is in 1 Thessalonians chapter 2. We'll be reading verses 10 through 12. So if you would, turn with me. If you don't have your Bible, could you run and get it real quick? And I'll wait. I'll wait for you. No, let's get going. We're going to show the video or some of the passages here. Okay, so 1 Thessalonians chapter 2, verses 10 through 12. It reads, "You are witnesses, and so is God, of how holy, righteous, and blameless we were among you who believed. For you know that we dealt with each of you as a father deals with his own children, encouraging, comforting, and urging you to live lives worthy of God, who calls you into his kingdom and into his glory." The Apostle Paul, you see, he is writing to the church in Thessalonica to remind these new believers of how he behaved when he was with them years before. In the beginning of the chapter, he uses a metaphor now of a mother to explain his gentleness. And now he is focusing on his fatherly side. You see, the Apostle Paul, he gives us 10 ways that we can say, thank you, dads, for what it is that you do as Christian men. So let's take a look at these. The first one is, thank you, Dad, for being a good example. Now, notice in verse 10, as we just read, Paul and his ministry partners point to how they behaved when they were among the believers. So he starts out with that. You are a witness, he says, and so is God, of how holy, righteous, and blameless we were among you who believed. So let's break that down. They were holy. Okay, it specified that, which means that they were set apart for ministry. And then they were righteous, meaning that their character and their behavior was upright. They had good character while they were with these folks. And they were blameless, which is literally translated, not able to find fault in. You see, the disciple-making dads, they know that they preach and that they teach through their words and through their walk. As someone has said, one way to correct your children is to correct the example that you are setting for them. Dads, here's what I know. Your kids will want to have what you have if they see you living out what you have. Dads, you must be a man after God's own heart. Our second point for dads is, dads, thanks for caring for your kids. Thank you for that. See, verse 11, Paul describes his relationship with the church like a dad who is dealing with his own children. It reads like this in verse 11, for you know that we dealt with each of you as a father deals with his own children. This is really interesting because the phrase each of you is emphasized here, meaning that they had a personal relationship with each of these new baby believers in the church. Dad, it's important for us to get close as we can to each and every one of our kids in order to provide personal advice, fatherly advice to our children. We must know each of them intimately and personally. Now, look for ways to spend time with them. Figure out what it is that your little ones, what they like to do. And they will always treasure the time that they had with you, Dad, growing up. Whether it was fishing or hunting or doing tea parties or even a fashion show. Third point, thanks for encouraging your kids. See, in verse 12, the first word, if you take a look at it, it's encouraging. And here's the definition of what it means. To come alongside with instruction and insight in order to move someone in a specific line of correction. We all need someone, and I mean that. We all need someone to encourage us, to come close and to cheer us on, don't we? I know there are times in my life that I need that. Now, I heard a story about a young man, a boy. He had special needs, and his name was Jeffrey, and he had a form of Down syndrome. And as I heard this story, we find that Jeffrey is on the school track team now. And Jeffrey, he finds himself getting ready to run the race on the school track team as they compete against other schools. And the track referee, he yells to the runners, "Take your mark." And they all get down, they put their hands on the ground, they put their feet in their starting blocks. And all of a sudden, a man stands up in the bleachers and says, "Jeffrey, you can do it. I know you have it in you. You're going to do great. Run as fast as you can, Jeffrey. I love you." And Jeffrey turns around. And just as Jeffrey turned around and was going to wave, the referee fired the starting gun. And Jeffrey found himself in last place. And he still waved because it was his father He waved at his dad, and he took off running. And Jeffrey was running as fast as he could. And the whole time during the race, he maintained last place. But he was running for everything that he was worth. So he got pulled away from the rest of the runners. The pack of runners were way up ahead of him. And they almost lapped Jeffrey during the race. And as it came to a completion with first, second, and third place, Jeffrey was still way behind and needed to finish the race, and he was running. And something happened as Jeffrey was closing to the finish line. Everyone in the stands started to chant, Jeffrey, Jeffrey. And his father was up there, the biggest cheerleader of them all. Come on, Jeffrey, you can do it. And as Jeffrey started to run by the bleachers, he raised his hands to everybody, and everybody was cheering, and Jeffrey finished the race. And I thought about that, and I thought, you know what? That didn't happen for the guys in first, second, and third place. It happened for the boy who was in last place. He was being cheered on. And you know, as I thought about that, I thought, God the Father is cheering us on as we run this race of life. I don't know what it is that you have to deal with in your life, but I can tell you this, that God the Father, He's cheering you on. He is there cheering you on, telling you, you can do it. You can do this. You can run this race of life and be victorious. You just need to focus. Focus on me. And God's love is there with us. Number 4. Thanks for comforting your kids. See, the next word that we see in verse 12 is comforting. Now, this word is similar to encouraging. Now, it means to come alongside with sympathy and concern. Now, it's the idea of giving comforting words to cheer up your children with words, with a word that is used in John chapter 11, verse 19. When many came to Martha and Mary, do you remember that? To comfort them in the loss of their brother. It's also used in 1 Thessalonians chapter 5, verse 14, encouraging the faint-hearted, or as another translation puts it, cheer up the discouraged. You see, when our kids are doing okay, they need encouragement. And when they're falling apart, they need comfort. In both instances, kids needs fathers who are willing to come close to them, who are willing to be open to closeness. Number 5, thanks for urging your kids to go deep with God. Now, the word urging means to beg earnestly. Our kids need fathers who will do what is right in the sight of the Lord and to walk with them on their children's spiritual journey, so that the children may they live worthy of God, who calls them into His kingdom and into His glory. Faithful fathers, they provide correction in a spirit of comfort and encouragement, and that's the key right there. Now, the goal is to have our kids to love the Lord and to become followers of Christ. That's the goal, Dad. Now, I'd like to point out that there are 3 words here that we need to emphasize on: encouraging, comforting, and urging. Now, they're in the present tense. If you think about this, these 3 words are in the present tense, which means that they are to be our continual practice: encouraging, comforting, and urging. Dads, thank you for repeatedly reinforcing this. Now, these important truths, and to keep on embracing, encouraging, and urging your children on. Now, this brings us to our second text for the morning. in Ephesians chapter 6, verse 4, if you would turn there with me, please, as we read. And it reads like this: Fathers, do not exasperate your children. Instead, bring them up in the training and the instruction of the Lord. Now notice, the very first word in this verse is fathers. Fathers. I think that Paul, he's addressing just dads here now, because he knows that we especially need to hear what is going to come after that word fathers. In essence, we are challenged to see the word father as a verb, an action, and not just a noun. See, I get it. Biologically, it's very easy to become a father. But biblically, it can be a challenge to a father to father our children. Our sixth point for dads this morning. Thank you, dads, for not exasperating your kids. Now, this part of our responsibility is quite challenging. If you have children, you know what I'm talking about. Now, we're told not to exasperate our children. See, this is a caution or a warning designed to put us on guard against stirring up anger within our kids, either deliberately or through careless acts. Now, Paul knows that as fathers, that we are fallen creatures, just like everyone else. But we can be prone to abuse our authority in our home. And he puts it this way in Colossians 3:21. Listen, fathers, do not embitter your children, or they will become discouraged. And when we make our kids angry, we become bitter, or they become bitter, and honestly, they become really bummed out kids. Remember that our children are commanded by God to honor us. Do you ever think about that? Our kids are actually commanded by God to honor us. Ephesians 6, verses 1 through 3. Children, obey your parents in the Lord, for this is right. Honor your father and your mother, which is the first commandment with a promise, so that it may go well with you and that you may enjoy long life on earth. Dads, let's honor the command to not exasperate our children. If both of the sides here, both children and parents, they honor the Lord, then things will go much smoother. Number 7, thanks for bringing your kids up to believe. Thank you, dads, for doing that. Ephesians 6:4. Fathers, do not exasperate your children. Instead, bring them up in the training and the instruction of the Lord. Right in the middle of verse 4, right there, we see the word instead. And it shows a real contrast between what we should not do and what we are to do. See, we're to bring up our children because they will not get there by themselves. Dads, we're to take an active role in sharpening the character of our own children. In Proverbs 29:15, it says, a child left to himself brings shame to his mother. Disciple-making dads, they provide a nurturing environment. Can grow up and they can learn to love and they can learn to serve the Lord. Number 8, thank you, dads, for discipling your kids. Dads, we are challenged to provide a discipleship for our own kids. It's important to understand the difference between discipline and punishment. Now, hear me on this. Now, the purpose of punishment is to inflict a penalty and to focus on the past. That's what the purpose of punishment is. But the purpose of discipline is to promote growth by looking to the future. Dads, our kids are looking for us to train them and to love them by disciplining them. You see, without disciplining, we're hurting our kids. And sometimes we get that thought in our head reversed, that if I discipline my kid, I might be hurting them. But understand the context of discipline, which is to promote looking forward, to bring health to them, not just a strict punishment. Number 9, thanks for teaching your children, Dad. Dad, you are the point man of your home. That's worthy of saying again, isn't it? Dad, you are the point man of your home, spiritually. Now, your goal is not to merely get to your kids outwardly to conform to a list of rules, although that would be really good. But that's not our goal. Our mandate is to develop our children to seek and to glorify with their lives the Lord God. Dads, don't just teach your kids to do good for goodness sake. Teach them to serve God through a lifestyle of servanthood. You see, one of the best things that my wife Cindy and I ever did as parents was to serve the Lord together with our children. Number 10, thank you, dads, for having a heart for your kids. I really, really mean that. You see, my trouble, more often than not, is that I'm not engaged as a dad, even with my adult daughters. Sometimes my mind is elsewhere and I'm not engaged about being a father. And I'm not always fully present. My heart is not always in the job. Our third and our final text for this Father's Day morning is in Malachi, chapter 4, verse 6. Listen to what it reads. Well, let me just say this before we read it. The very last verse of the Old Testament is chapter 4, verse 6. And the prophet looks ahead to the ministry of John the Baptist, and he writes this: He will turn the hearts of the fathers to their children, and the hearts of the children to their fathers, or else I will come and I will strike the land with a curse. See, that's pretty serious. That's very serious. Now, I've often wondered why this verse comes at the very end of the Old Testament. Now, this is God's last word for about 400 years before the gospel comes onto the scene. Now, God's heart, and understand this, this is about God's heart. God's heart is for my heart to be towards my children, and for the hearts of my children to be towards me. Now, dads, this is a specific challenge to us. And thanks for looking for ways to allow God to heal your hurts in your heart, in your own heart, Dad, as you guide the hearts of your children. See, I know that for me, it's really a hard issue. It really is. The Lord has helped me to overcome an addiction to alcohol and to deal with an obsessive compulsive behavior and my hurts, habits, and hang-ups. For me, if my heart is fully focused on the Lord and my daughters, then I will do a pretty good job of fathering. Dads, if you sense that your heart is not really into parenting and your kids don't have much to do with you, then make this verse a personal prayer. And Malachi chapter 4, verse 6. And he will turn the hearts of the parents to their children, and the hearts of the children to their parents. Make that your prayer. Ask God to turn your heart to your children, and ask him to turn the hearts of your children to you. God the Father will be glad to answer a prayer like that. While we cannot turn our children's hearts around, we're responsible to make sure that our own hearts are soft towards them. And I would like to leave you this morning with this question. What are your priorities in life? And just take a moment to ponder on that. What are your priorities in life? I would like to make a suggestion of what these 3 priorities in our lives should be. Our first priority in our lives should be Jesus. Our second priority in our lives should be others. And our third priority in our lives should be yourself. And these 3 priorities should be in this order. Now, if you just take a look at those 3 words, there's an acronym there that spells out joy. J from Jesus, O from others, and Y for yourself. You see, these 3 priorities kept in this very order are really the key to true joy in life. Dads, may the Lord be with you. And I understand in a day and age like this, that this is a real challenge to be a father whose heart is after the Lord. But may the Lord be with you and bless you. And may you have a wonderful and a happy Father's Day. God bless you.